Hey there, it's Laura here from makingcardsisdone.com and welcome to another Saturday Stem Day carding video. It's been a while since I uploaded a video, but I hope to be sharing more cards very soon since I'm on my Easter break. Today I'm using the Fairy Friends set from Fawn, and I'm starting out with the stamp set, and I'm going to grab the three little fairy stamps. They are so adorable. I am using my Mini Misty and some Simon Says Stamp Ultra Heavyweight white cardstock to stamp these three fairies. So I am lining those up and then I'm going to pick them up with the Misty tool so I can easily stamp them all at once. I'm inking up the fairies with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. This is my favorite black ink to use whenever I am doing Copic coloring because the ink doesn't bleed. I'm using the BG11 color first to add a little bit of a soft aqua color to the wings, just adding it here and there. And then I am using the BG10 Copic Chow marker to blend that out. The BG10 color is also available in the Copic sketch marker, so I will link to both. Then for the skin, I am using E0000 first. This is my lightest color, so I'm adding that first. And then I went in with the E30. And I didn't blend that out because otherwise you wouldn't really see the shading. So I just left it like that. Then finally I am using R11 to add a little bit of blush to the cheeks of those adorable fairies. So I got the wings, I got the skin, and now I'm moving on and I'm going to color the dresses of those little fairies. I am using VO1 to add the first layer of color, and then I am going in with the VO5 to add some shading here and there. I blended that out with the lightest color again. This is just a really easy technique to add shading, so just really fast, and it's not that hard at all. And I also wanted to color a green dress, so I am using the YG23 color. And then I am adding YG17 to add some shading, kind of flicking my brush to add that. And then finally I am blending that together with the lightest color. So I'm using the YG23 again. I also wanted a pink dress because pink is one of my favorite colors. So I'm using the RV0000 color to add my lightest layer of color, and then I added RV11. I thought that was a little bit too light and it almost looked like my fairy wasn't wearing a dress, like, you know, she wasn't wearing anything. So I grabbed the RVO2 marker and I just used that to add a little bit more of shading, and then it looked like a true pink fairy dress. Then I'm coloring the hair of those fairies. I'm using the E57 marker to color the brown hair. I used E55 first because I wanted to add some shading, but it didn't work out at all. So I just ended up using the E57 just by itself. I also wanted a red hat fairy because I just love that hair color. So I added YR27 at the top, and then I blended that out with the YR24, and then you just have a really lovely hair color, which I just simply love. Then for the last fairy I am using E55. I used E55 first, and then I blended that out with E42, and then I'm going back in with the E55 to add a little bit more of shading. After I colored all of those fairies, I grabbed the coordinating Fairy Friends dies from Fawn to die cut those adorable fairies, and then here you have them. I think they're just so adorable. For today's project, I wanted to create a flower scene, so I grabbed the flower die cuts from the Fairy Friends set from Fawn, and I'm going to die cut the largest flowers first. Then I am using the two smaller flowers, and I'm also die cutting these. I just ran these through my Big Shop machine. Next, I grabbed a circle die from Fawn and my ruler, and I was just kind of figuring out how I wanted to make this card because I wanted to create a sequin shaker, but I also wanted these flowers to kind of pop on top of the sequin shaker. So I'm using my T-square ruler to draw a line, And then I'm going to do some partial die cutting. So I have my plate of my Big Shot machine, and I am lining up that little pencil mark with my cutting plates. Everything from the right of the plate will be die cut, and everything that is hanging off won't be die cut. So it's partial die cutting, which is a really fun technique that I learned from Jennifer McGuire. So when I removed my circle die, I took an X-Acto knife and I used my ruler again to cut the excess piece so that I would have like this globe shape. Then I grabbed those flower die cuts and my mini Misty. I put a little bit of adhesive behind those flowers so they would stay put, and I used the coordinating flower stamps to line that up. Then I picked that up with my Misty tool, and here I am stamping the flowers with Menta Tuxedo Black ink since I will be Copic coloring these flowers. I'm using YG17 first to add my lightest color, and then I am moving on to the YG67 to add a little bit of shading here and there. And of course I still need to blend that out, so I'm using the YG17 color again, which was the lightest color. Then I'm going to color the flowers. I'm using Y13 first for the daisy, so this is the lightest color. Then I am using the Y18 marker, which is a medium color. I'm using 3 colors for some of the flowers because I want a little bit more of shading than I had for the fairies. I'm also using Y19, and then I blended that together with the lightest color, but I didn't capture that on camera, so I'm sorry about that. Then for the tulip, I am using R22, then R29, and I blended that R29 with the R24. And I didn't use the R22 again because I wanted like a really intense red on the bottom of that tulip. Since I love anything aqua, I also wanted to color some aqua flowers. I used BG11 first, and then I blended that with BG10. So I'm using the BG10 here, and then I am using BG13 to add some more shading. I really love that aqua color. The BG13 marker is probably my favorite Copic sketch marker because it's such a gorgeous color. Creating another sequin shaker today, so I grabbed a piece of plastic. This is some of the fuse plastic sheets, and I folded that in half, and then I am fusing 2 lines, and I left the top open so I could fill that with some sequins. This is the Walters Sparkly Shaker Sequin Mix. This is made by Lucy from Lucy Sparkly Shaker Mixes, and this is an exclusive mix for Winnie and Walter. I decided to use that one because it matches the whole fairy theme and the colors that I used to color all of my images. And there you have the little shaker part. I'm using a sentiment from the Fairy Friends stamp set from Fawn. The sentiment says, "Thank you very much," and I kind of wanted to highlight that fairy, or the word fairy, so I picked that up with my Misty tool and I covered up the other words with some masking tape, and I'm inking up the word fairy with Versamark ink. Then after peeling off these masks, I'm going to go ahead and stamp that sentiment. Then I cleaned my sentiment and I left everything like it was, so I didn't unmount the stamp, I just left it like that. And this time I covered up the word fairy because I still needed to stamp the other words. So I'm using the Menta Tuxedo Black ink to ink that up, and then I can stamp it, and then I will have a really cool sentiment. I still needed some embossing powder, so I grabbed the Long Island Teal embossing powder from Wow. This is a gorgeous teal color and it will match with the sequins perfectly. So I'm just sprinkling that on, and then I heat set that with my heat tool. Going to adhere the sequin shaker behind or on the back side of that white paper. So I added some adhesive using my ATG, and then I'm adhering that sequin shaker over there. Using some foam adhesive to adhere the sequin shaker piece onto a standard size note card. And I'm using some multi-medium mats to adhere the flowers. I squeezed some of the glue onto a piece of scrap paper, and then I'm applying that using my finger because it was just a little bit more precise and also a little bit easier to me. It's really easy to pop those pieces in since all of these pieces fit like a puzzle. So I did some inlay die cutting for the flowers, and then for the snow globe shape, or just the globe shape, I used the partial die cutting technique. So a lot of die cutting for today's project. After adhering those fairies with foam adhesive, I went ahead and used some more sequins here and there. I adhered those using glossy accents, and of course I also used my EK Success tweezers. So that finishes up the card for this week's Saturday 7-day carding video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye!